Yeah, it's great to be here again. Great to be at the battery conference. Always great to be the only guy talking about vanadium in batteries as well, which was helpful. You've all read that. Just a quick overview of the company. What I'm going to try and spend a little bit more time today on talking about the actual battery market and why we think that is an exceptional growth market within the vanadium space. Another opportunity I'll spend a little bit of time on is why vanadium in steel is so very important as well, as it goes towards decarbonising the economy. We haven't quite gone down the road of coining the term green vanadium. I know that it might have been taken by someone outside, but I think at the end of the day, vanadium in steel is a very important aspect towards decarbonisation, giving our commodity a double-edged sword in this game. We've built up over the last few years, it's been 6 years since I've been at the company, starting at the resource stage. We built up a very strong vanadium-focused team, and I think in a commodity where there are only 3 producing primary mines outside of China, it's very important that you capture the technical skill of people in this particular space. And many of the people in this room know that it's very important to find people in your space, in your technology, that understand how things can be done and done properly. We've been blessed by a very high-quality deposit. The region of Western Australia we're in has a lot of vanadium deposits, and they're sort of up and down. Some of them have various characteristics, but overall I think many of them will be mined in time as the demand for vanadium goes up. We've been lucky enough to start with our project, and it has a high base grade and a very consistent grade at that. So our focus really is about delivering a project that is deliverable at all price cycles. This is a very variable price for the commodity because it's driven by Chinese steel markets. The BFS is underway. It's rapidly progressing towards completion. We're very pleased by our progress to date, and we'll keep telling the market about how we're going with that. We have achieved both major project status at a government level, at state and federal level, and we are working strongly with government on their critical minerals processing workflows. They are very interested and are very active in the space, both at state and federal level. Just a little bit about the company. We released an updated pre-feasibility study at the end of November. We also appointed Cliff Lawrenson to our board as chair. Those 2 events happened within a month of each other, November, December last year. And as a result, in early January, when everyone returned back to work, we had a bit of a re-rating. We're currently trading around 2 cents. A lot of shares in issue. Company's been around a while, but we're moving that market cap in the right direction. And the delivery of our project is our primary objective. And we think the value relative to the NPV of the project is extremely low. So a really good opportunity globally for vanadium investment. Just a quick snapshot of the team. Sam's here today down the back. Sam is looking after a core component of this presentation, which is our delivery of a vanadium redox flow battery market here in Australia, so we can sell more vanadium into that space as we grow that sector. Todd and Daniel are our vanadium experts. Todd's both Americans. Todd is here with us, living in Perth and making things go. Cliff, a very excellent corporate background in this town, having achieved some major M&A transactions, and his most recent was the sale of Atlas to Hancock, and the recent very excellent financing into Paydirt. Les has been in the company since inception, has been driving and has a lot of vested interest in this project going forward. So really the focus for us has been identifying, is this a very, very high-grade deposit worth mining? We heard Peter Harold talk this morning about grade being king. It is still king, despite what everyone thinks. It will always come home to roost. Grade is king. So this deposit has the grade to make it into a great deposit from there in terms of recovery. Then it's about the metallurgy and whether we can get this material out of those rocks in a very, very cost-efficient way, which we've shown we can do with our expert team going towards low-cost delivery. So a little bit about vanadium. These are graphic but simple. Vanadium is accounted for mainly by the steel market. We use it to strengthen steel. China produces and consumes around 60% of this market every year. The total market is relatively small at 102,000 tonnes of metal. The titanium chemical alloy market is a very important part and is what is critical in vanadium because it gets involved in the defence industry. The emerging markets by far are vanadium storage, specifically vanadium energy storage in redox flow batteries, but also the use of vanadium in lithium-ion cathode, which we will see more of in the future. So this criticality drives the aerospace applications for vanadium. There is no substitute for vanadium in those alloys, and it is what puts it on the list of multiple countries. We have worked very hard here in Western Australia and in the Critical Minerals Office in Canberra to define vanadium as a battery metal as well. And the reason being is that it offers a viable alternative for grid-scale, large-scale, long-duration energy storage outside of the lithium space. Not everywhere does grid application suit lithium-ion, and lithium-ion is very dominant and is very low cost, but there is a very, very strong case for vanadium to be in that place. This is not a textbook exercise or a laboratory exercise. There are over 35 companies operating and able to sell commercial scale, very large scale vanadium redox flow batteries. Just one last point I'd like to make on the ESG aspect of vanadium in steel, and it is a very important aspect because as of today, vanadium in steel does account for a very large portion of carbon reduction. If you use more vanadium in steel, you will be making a very big impact, in fact a much bigger impact than even energy storage applications, either lithium or vanadium, will do to reduce your carbon footprint. So we mustn't look at our commodities as just being part of some industry. They also can, their traditional applications used in the proper way can make a significant impact. We look at the growth market for vanadium, for energy storage, stationary energy storage in particular, and we see that that growth curve allows for other types of material, other types of batteries to exist in this market. Hence our interest, and even a small component of this market specifically geared to long duration storage will be applicable to vanadium redox flow batteries. And we will be pushing ahead with growing that market in Australia by using Australian vanadium in those products in a very significant way going forward. Just a snapshot of the project. There are a couple of very good posters in the hall. Please talk to us about the geology. I do want to spend a bit of time on the battery here. So we've got a 25-year mine life, an 87 million tonne resource. We'll be there for a while. We're producing about 4% of the world's global market. The economics of the pre-FS from recent last December are very, very strong, and we can extend those as we complete the bankable feasibility study later this year. The project is very simple. It's a titanium vanadium magnetite deposit, the most common source, if not I'd say the only source of significant vanadium tonnes globally, both in China and the rest of the world. And as the state is blessed with this, the deposit is robust and solid, and we have a very, very large chunk of it. We're very well down the planning route, and our opportunity now is to get that done, get that funded, using our innovative approach. And our innovation extends past just the processing side. We really are targeting low-cost production here. We have to be on the bottom of that cost curve. That's the way we survive the steel industry. But the real innovation for me is also the use of our innovation around the battery side. So you can be unique on your project, but you need to be unique in the marketplace as well. So as we work towards finalising our project objectives through the course of this year, we'll be looking at those key areas and getting them done so that we can put this project into production. The very exciting part of this really is about what we do with some of that vanadium. So we'll be producing 24 million pounds. That'll be going, let's just say 80% of it's going to go into the steel market. And that underpins quite a lot for us. But there is a very, very large opportunity in the sector that says we will use some of this vanadium in batteries that we install here in Australia. Now the niches around it, that's a battery we've installed down in Busselton that's been running for 4.5 years. With 5-hour storage capacity, and it hasn't blinked in that time. This is an Austrian product. I'm sitting just down the road. The opportunity in multiple niches is significant. Because the vanadium battery can be scaled from something at a domestic level all the way through to a power station level, because it's an energy battery, it has a power component and an energy storage component. That scalability gives you an opportunity to enter multiple niches. In a country like Australia where we have very many remote grid settings. We have lots and lots of people running their lives on diesel and are very reliant on diesel. You can just see within your own selves how much that has an ESG impact and a carbon footprint impact. So replacing that energy opportunity with renewable generation, whether it be wind and solar, and long duration storage. Now, we're not just talking about an hour or 2 hours here. We're talking about 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours and longer. Out in those remote settings where we can actually then truly get to 100% renewable coverage. If you put solar onto a property, you might get to 30% or 40% renewable coverage. If you put a lithium-ion battery onto a large project or a property, you'll get to 60 or 70%. But how do you get past that? Within the capital limits of what you're trying to achieve, you really need to think about long duration. And long duration is becoming more and more relevant in many, many conversations. And as I said, now for something completely different, vanadium is not lithium. It has very many different characteristics to lithium. And this is why we are open and are pushing in for our commodity to be used in this space in a commercial sense. It doesn't make me a pariah at all to the lithium world and to the EV world. I think there's a lot of synergy between not only electrifying, greening our grid, but also greening our vehicles. And we do those together, we're going to have the world we want to have. The scalability I've mentioned, the degradation and the safety are really important parts. This battery won't degrade in the same way a lithium-ion battery will degrade, and that leads to the recyclability. In solution, we have vanadium in solution in the battery. It's only one metal, it's not intercalated metals, it's in solution, and we can take it out at the end of the life, we can use it in another battery. 100% of that vanadium is still in there at the end from it is at the start, and that can be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. When we take that vanadium out, if we don't want to use it in a battery, we can take it back to the processing plant, recycle it, and turn it back into a steel metal. Now, that is a circular opportunity which is not offered by many others. A lot of the discussions I've noticed in the last few weeks around the lithium-ion space is that we have an issue to deal with in terms of recyclability. This is possible and very, very natural for the vanadium battery space, something that we'd like our energy producers to take note of. We're not there to displace lithium. In fact, in many, many applications, the application of a short-term power battery and a long-duration storage battery are perfectly suited for grid applications and power stations. When we're trying to take a coal-fired power station off the grid, we should be replacing it with those combination of technologies that allow us to match renewables and long-duration and short-duration energy storage, which meet the needs of the customers. I see I've got 1.5 minutes left, so I'll just keep going. We have been working very closely in our VSUN team. VSUN is a sales organization. It's about selling batteries into the Australian market. Our long-term plan is to use vanadium in those batteries, but for now we want that market to exist. And those companies at the bottom are all commercial companies. You can phone them tomorrow and order a flow battery from them. They only have one problem. They will have to find the vanadium for you, and that's where I come into the story. We have developed very good relationships with them. We have reseller agreements with a number of international companies. We have some favourites in there, but it's worth noting that Sumitomo Electric are on that list. Sumitomo are the world leader in very, very large-scale VRFB implementations, and they've done it for over 10 years. They have the smarts, they have the backing, and they're present here in Australia working with AVL and VSUN to deliver some very large systems, particularly in the mining space. And that's where we think that the long duration opportunity comes back into the mining opportunity, where we can actually push down the road of greening our mining operations, but again, long duration is the key. There is a huge opportunity. I've always felt I probably stand a little bit alone there in the residential space, particularly in the Australian market, because residential customers in Australia are quite well heeled. They're quite switched on. They do want to use all the electricity that they get on their roof in their house, and they don't want to be selling it back for 4 cents or less that we're going to be getting in the near future. So there's no point in us being penalised for being solar generators. We need to keep all the energy we create, and I think that the VRFB scalability work we're doing down in with a group called CADS down in Bibra Lake is starting to design that particular battery and get it out into the marketplace here. So just to finish off, just the implications of using vanadium for us. Why is AVL interested in building this market? Well, For I produce around 10 to 12,000 tons of vanadium pentoxide a year. That would be 1 year's production for 1 gigawatt hour of storage. That means for 25 years, I could only just fill a small part of what's needed for the long duration energy storage market. But it fills it very neatly for me, and it lets me get involved in a whole new sector which stabilizes my commodity price and has a very, very good impact on the global transition to clean energy. Thank you very much.